Let's go. Professor Swollington, Dr. Yoked, former Cornell College kinesiology professor, and just recently a professor at Tarleton State, I probably pronounced that wrong, University in Fort Worth, Texas. And if I'm being honest, his professional resume is a mile long. No joke. So I'll save my breath. But it varies from assistant professors, head coaching, strength and conditioning coordinators, personal training, academic advisor, and so on. His award list and research list is insanely long as well. He is the master, absolute king of anything physical education and an inspiration for my teaching career. Ladies and gentlemen, Colin Pennington, welcome to the podcast.
That was comedy. Thank you. I appreciate that. That was really nice of you to say, man. That for real.
No, super happy to have you on. I mean, being a PE teacher as well, you're the one who taught me a lot of my things. But real quick, just for the other people who may not know you, who didn't get the pleasure of being taught by you, can you give them like a Spark Notes version or of your career and kind of like the highlights and stuff of what you did?
Yeah, sure. Let's just start with my college education. I'm from a town in East Texas, kind of a small town. Went to school to get an undergraduate degree in kinesiology, sport pedagogy, pedagogical kinesiology. Wanted to be a PE teacher, wanted to be a coach. I went to the University of Texas at Arlington, got my undergraduate degree there. And while I was getting my degree, I was also coaching soccer and I was putting together strength and conditioning programming for a junior high in the area. I was also a personal trainer, because you don't have to have a college degree to be a personal trainer in a lot of places. You can get certified and earn a few bucks on the side. It looks good on a resume. I always encourage my students that want to get into fitness, health, coaching, teaching, make a few bucks, make good connections, and have a good line on your resume. Take a personal training certification because some of those tests cost like 40, 50 bucks and you can do it. And if you're a kinesiology student, chances are you're already learning the course content
Yeah.
in your classes that prep you for that exam. So
Mhm.
I was also a personal trainer, and then I got my master's degree at the same institution in exercise physiology with a focus in strength and conditioning, because at that time I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coordinator for a college or university or maybe high school program, because I'd been teaching physical education and working with athletes in the middle school and junior high setting as well. I wanted to find something that allowed me to do strength and conditioning, working with young adults, doing something that was good in the community, like working with kids, specifically at-risk kids, kids at risk of dropping out, joining gangs, teenage pregnancy, stuff like that. I was doing a lot of that when I was coaching. And I found that I had a passion for it. And some professors that I had encouraged me to consider getting a doctorate and join the Academy of Professors, because that's a way that I could actually kind of put all these little skills and talents and interests of mine into one place in one profession where I'm working with those that will be future teachers of health, of physical education, or maybe coaches or athletic trainers or physical therapists. Because when you're a professor of kinesiology, your students are all going into those broad disciplines. But you pointed it out, I'm really interested in physical education. That's really where my heart and my passions are. I think that the physical educator has a unique opportunity to make a connection with a youngster that not your traditional other academic subject teachers can, because so many classes are taught in a classroom with a whiteboard, lecture and learn, whereas physical education, as you know, obviously, is highly interactive. It's physically interactive, and there's social development that can occur as well in that setting in a different way. Not to say that that cannot happen or doesn't happen in other educational settings. Physical education is just different. So after I wrapped up my doctorate, I got a doctorate at the University of Alabama. I was there for 3 years, where I also taught in the kinesiology program and did some other stuff working with inner city children. I got a job at Cornell College, Mount Vernon, Iowa. It was awesome. It was one of the best years of my life. I was only there a year. I made amazing friendships with the faculty and with you. You and I
Yeah.
still have a relationship. What, 4 years later, three?
Some light, it's getting there.
No, I think it's yeah, I think it's every bit of 3 years at least down the road, and
Yeah,
you
like
and
in
I
my
still.
junior year.
Okay, so there you are. And you and I are still in touch, and it was just a phenomenally positive experience. And I took a job back in Texas because of issues related to family, and I'm from Texas. I was right there, and it made a lot of sense for me to get back to Texas at that time in my life. I'm not going to say that I regret it because Cornell was awesome. Uh, I'm not going to say that I regret leaving Cornell, but there's some days where I wish I was back in Mount Vernon, doing what I was doing with guys like you. But anyways, life brought me on a path that brought me back to Texas, where I was a professor of kinesiology at Tarleton State. You got the pronunciation right. Um, but I wasn't working as closely with physical education majors as I wanted to be. In some capacity, I was. I would teach maybe one class a semester that was really focused on PE, but all my other courses that I taught were much more general kinesiology, like a physiology of exercise class, a leadership and coaching class. Really cool stuff I liked a lot. But like you said, my heart's in PE. So I actually have just accepted a new opportunity. It's a school in the CUNY system, the City University of New York. It's called York College, and I'll be moving up to New York actually, like at the end of this week. Um, where I'll get back into the physical education teacher preparation program where most of my research is in teacher preparation and teacher education. So I'll get back into my research agenda and I'll be working with future PE teachers. I was doing some of that at Charleston. It was really great. But this is much more focused and much more specific to what my doctorate is in. So just like with Cornell, my time at Charleston was awesome, dude. I had really great coworkers, and the students that were at Charlton were also just the bomb. So it's never easy leaving anywhere. Um, I'm fortunate enough to be going to a place though that I'm really excited about the opportunities there.
Yeah, you really broke down everything that definitely wanted to hear kind of your story and just that back end of what you were saying, the whole moving part. I'm in the same boat like we were just talking about before we started recording. And then also just moving to where you want to be and what's the best fit for you. Like it is so tough leaving, like leaving all my kiddos right now because I was in elementary ed. Like it hurts. I'm like, wait, I don't get to see those smiling faces every day. But of course, with my next journey of being in the middle school and high school, I get to help them in different genres of life. Like, where are you going to go to college? Like, oh, let me help you become a better athlete for your sport that's coming up in the
And
fall.
I think that's a really healthy point of view. When I left Arlington, when I left Texas to go get a doctorate, where I was at, I was teaching and coaching at a junior high of at-risk youth. And we're talking about 13, 14, 15-year-olds that were, really involved in some serious stuff, like stuff that needs real intervention, or they are at risk of cascading into a life that could be cut short by violence or jail time or something really, really harmful. So when I left, I felt so much guilt because I was important there. I was, not to this is going to sound arrogant, but I was a really good role model and I was a positive influence and my life had meaning because I was helping and serving in the community in a very real hands-on way. But when you go into academia, you're serving in a less hands-on way. There's a buffer between me and the K through 12 students who need a lot of help. The buffer is students like you
Yeah.
who hopefully absorb some of my teaching philosophy and my message of community outreach and civility and whatnot. And what I told myself when I left, and maybe I'm just deluding myself to absolve myself of guilt, but was that I'm going to be creating lots of people that have hopefully a decent perspective and philosophy on education, that my tentacles can go out further by leaving, being the person, the foot soldier on the ground and getting into higher ed. And I think that your point of view is similar in that you're leaving K through 12, or I'm sorry, you're leaving elementary education where you might have these really great relationships. I know you do, and it's painful, and maybe there's some guilt associated with that. But now you'll be working with older young adults who have different challenges in life. And your guidance and your direction and your mentorship and your role modeling and just your presence will shape them and grow them and develop them in different ways that you can't with a third grader, because that third grader is too far away from being really defined by the decisions that they'll make. Like if you're working with a 16 or 17 or 18-year-old, some of the decisions that they make might really define their futures. And so you're in closer proximity now to those important decisions. So the work that you're doing it's different, or it's got a more profound opportunity for real positive impact. So I know that you I know that you're such a good guy with such a big heart. I know it's hard to say goodbye to people, but
Yeah.
you're saying hello to people that you're going to help in a major, major way.
Yeah, and I mean, you related to the at-risk students, the very diverse communities, and being here in the Quad Cities, Davenport, Bettendorf, they've really showed me and opened my eyes to that, and I've learned so much from them. Not just trying to be this positive role model, not just trying to be this person who helps them not go make decisions that are really, really bad, but making them like commit and really love a sport because I got to be on the coaching side for
Yeah.
track and for football. So like I got to, do a little bit of what I'm about to do here this coming up fall. And you just make such a good point. It's just being that role model, being like, oh, like this and that. There's so many more things that could possibly happen, like you see in movies and TV shows where they bring up, ideas like, we've been talking about. It's just like crazy that where I was at, this is what sometimes people fall into. And
Yeah.
being that teacher, being that, coach, that, a player texts me, others like, thank you so much. You really benefited my game. And now I know exactly where I'm going after high school. It's like, yes, right there is
Yeah.
the reason. Like I got one. And your whole tentacle thing is so true. Like myself, your buffer is going through me. And now instead of just working in one school, which you were in Arlington, I think you said you were coaching, you only could affect that one school district. Well, now when you're teaching all these other teachers that are going to go everywhere, Iowa, Texas, Illinois, wherever it may be, your tentacles are going. You're slowly working that
Yeah.
system
Yeah.
together.
And it's cool too when you work in higher ed, when you're a professor, teaching is part of your responsibilities, but also is academic writing and writing for publication. So it's really cool to see that you write something about how you help a student with a physical disability participate in PE, and then you see that someone read that paper and then cited it and it gets circulated. And I got an email from a physical therapist who has a child with Marfan syndrome, which is a physical disability, and it oftentimes results in cardiac events. And you have to be really careful with kids playing sports with cardiac conditions, obviously. So it was really cool to get some feedback on that article that I wrote from that PT that put it into practice and had a good crack at developing the athletic skills and physical conditioning of one of her patients who had Marfan. So it's really cool. Like, and you being a coach, you're going to be in a community of different people. Like you're a teacher in a community of teachers, and you're going to be a coach in a community of coaches. In a lot of ways, that Venn diagram overlaps, obviously. But your network will grow, and as you've gone to this new institution, you'll be working with different people with a different network, and that's just another opportunity where your philosophy and your positive influence can permeate and spread to yet another network of individuals. And I encourage you highly, and I'm sure you already are, a member of area clubs, memberships, committees, whatever your network of peer professionals are. The coaching network is a really, really good one, and there's really good resources, starting just with conversation, right? Having conversations with new and more and different people now, as a coach of high school students instead of being not just a teacher, but a teacher in elementary settings. Well, now you're just doubling your network. So again, that's an opportunity where movement through your career just grows. And I wouldn't encourage a person that was 23 or 24 years old that's kind of trying to get an idea of what it is they want to do with their degree or what job. I wouldn't encourage them to start a new job every year. That wouldn't make a lot of sense. That would
There's
be
your
good for
resume
no one.
builder. Tick, tick, tick. Year.
But as a person who's been at a few stops along the way, and I'm still pretty early in my career for academia, at least I'm 33. I'm not like a young pup anymore. But as far as like professors are concerned, I'm still early in my career, and I've been at a few spots now, and I can tell you that I've absorbed information and I've overcome challenges because I've moved. Um, you could stay at one institution and get a bachelor's and a master's and a doctoral degree from one place, but chances are you're sitting in a classroom learning from the same handful of people if your degrees are all in the same content area. So you almost need to bounce to another school to get a master's or go to another school to get a doctorate or go to these conferences in other places and work at other places so that you're absorbing more data, absorbing more information. And it's a challenge to do that. It's uncomfortable to do that. That's why a lot of people say yes to a job and they've worked there for 30 years, done and dusted, because it's a challenge to bounce around and move around. But when you overcome those challenges, I think you're better for it. So you're early in your career, obviously. You'll be in your third year
Yep,
now
this is my
teaching
third year.
coaching. So you'll what's amazing is you don't even know how much you learned in the past 2 years at your last gig. You don't even know. You won't know until a few months down the road, or maybe even a year or so down the road, this new gig, how much you grew from that first one. And it's whenever you go to location B or C or D, you realize how much you picked up at location A and B. So I think it makes a lot of sense to grow. And I think for most people younger in their career, you grow by moving. You know, I encourage it personally.
Yeah, and that's one thing. I mean, just from the two places, because I actually coached at a different school than what I taught. So I had just a ton of everyday learning, using what I learned from and trying out different ways. Because obviously, you're not successful with every lesson plan. I know I can go back and like, this lesson absolutely awful. Next year, when I did that same subject, though, that same lesson, oh, I crushed it. I was like, all right, but I had to fail so that I could do well with that next lesson. And you're so right with just moving different places and taking like, oh, I've kind of had a similar situation my first year of teaching. I might not see that, like you said, this year or next year, but that, with this new school district, like I had something similar, but if I wouldn't have went to this other school, I would not have learned how to, react to it. So I totally agree with that.
And failure, it's a word we use a lot in sports too, definitely,
Yeah.
right? Like failed to reach base, failed to complete a pass, this and that. Failure is just it's an overused word in education, especially in physical education, where so many opportunities and successes are contingent upon uh, contextual variables that you might have no control over. Failure is a word that doesn't have a whole lot of doesn't carry a lot of water for me. I think that it's just data. A failing experience is really just data that you're receiving from it. You tried a lesson plan and they weren't able to manipulate the equipment the way you wanted. Accuracy wasn't what you expected, or maybe just buy-in and enjoyment of the activity was low and you thought
Classroom
more.
management of it, like you thought it would.
That's not failure. That's just data. And that data informs an intervention. Okay. I know now I need to pass out the equipment after I've given them the instruction.
That's
Right.
one thing I know for sure. Like I took from you. I'm like, that makes total sense. Why didn't I think of that when I first did that? I totally got you.
Yeah, and I know that because I tried it and there it just gives you data. So the important thing about failure, it's only a failure if you fail to absorb the data that came from the experience. If you do absorb that data, it's not failure, it's just practice. You're just practicing the activity the way that you teach it, the way that it will be implemented in fidelity into success in the future. And man, I've tried certain lessons and even simple stuff like tag or a variation of a tag game.
Half an hour. My cat's joining the podcast.
What's up, feline? It's funny. I've tried certain activities and stuff as complex as like team sports, invasion style games, and simple stuff like tag games. And sometimes they fall on their face. One lesson, the bell rings, you get new kids. Same thing, it works great. It's impossible to really predict certain elements related to how the lesson will go because you're teaching it to children, and elementary children are almost easier to predict than high school kids because high school kids have this added variable that's tricky. It's called hormones and attitude, bro. And you can't really, you can write your lesson plans meticulous down to the last detail, time it out to the last second, but you factor in the wrong attitude or the wrong hormones or the emotional experience that your kids might have had earlier that day or the night before, and it changes the way the lesson goes. And I learned to be patient with myself because when I was disappointed how a lesson went, I wasn't considering at the time, this was when I was a PE teacher, that there are variables that were really outside of my control at work. And some variables are kind of funny, like we might laugh at like the silly high school relationship stuff that's in their heads. The student athlete that's at practice and their heads off somewhere else, with a date they're going to go on. That's the nonsense, silly stuff. But then some of it's real and it's sad and it's just discouraging because my kid wasn't invested in the activity or in practice because they were hungry. You feel me? Or mom didn't come home last night because she was out earning money. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
those are real life experiences that your kids will have, that you, the teacher, and you, the coach, um, my recommendation would be exercise grace, obviously with the child who's going through that life experience, but also with yourself. And if it feels like you're not reaching them or this activity's failing, it could be because of those variables that are so far outside of your control are at work as well. So grace and forgiveness and patience, not just for your kids and your student athletes, but also for yourself, especially when you're a young up and coming teacher or coach. It takes time. It takes time to develop the intuition and the instinct and the art of teaching. You know, we try to take teaching and break it down into a science. Do these discrete activities in this order. This is the outcome. It's not baking a cake. You don't do these 5 things with these 10 ingredients and make a cake. There's an art to it, right? So there's an element of science. There are certain things you can do that will increase your probability of success, like classroom management, like not passing out the equipment before you give instructions, right? That increases probability of success. But then there's this hard to measure ingredient that you have to put in there. And that's a little bit of touch. That's a little bit of art. And that's a little bit of personality. And that's where the teacher's personality has to be one that the student or the student athlete is willing to receive in its best intent. Sometimes a teacher will impose their personality in a way that the student does not receive it well, because no kid wants to receive tough love, because no kid wants tough, right? But if it's
Yeah.
tough love and the intent is noble and honorable and pure, then I have faith that that ingredient starts to work somewhere down the line. And maybe you and a student butt heads, you clash, personality clash in the present. I have faith that maybe somewhere down the line, as that student matures and they start to reflect back on their experiences in PE, they realize that, hey, Coach Hines or Mr. Hines or whatever,
Yeah.
he knew what he was talking about, and he didn't just know what he was talking about. He was trying to help me. That was effort towards my success. So, like I said, the hidden ingredient that's really hard to tease out is personality and that nuance. And I do think that more veteran teachers develop the personality as they go. And some people are just not cut out for it. I'm sure you've seen teachers that have been in the game for 10, 15, 20 years. And you're like, bro, do you even like this job? You're bad at this. Like, you don't seem to like it and they don't seem to like you. Maybe it's not the right gig for you. Teaching's hard, not just because the science is actually quite complicated, but because it's just not for everyone. Some
Yeah.
people actually do more harm than good as teachers and coaches.
And the things that, I definitely took away from like you saying that is you got to know your students at the end of the day. You have this perfect, oh, this lesson plan worked so great for me. You don't have my students. You don't know my students. I know them. They know me. I know how it's going to work. I'm going to take your cake ingredients. Now I got to put my spices in there for what works for my classroom. I got to put in, okay, I know so-and-so over here, I can't do this, what exactly worked for you. Or this went really well for you. I know that ain't going to work for me. Just because of how I go about teaching is building those relationships. I know throughout school and learning about it is everyone said that's so hard. I knew for me, that was the easy part. I can easily fulfill a relationship, especially with those students who are most at risk or who probably need the most help. Me and them just click just like that. Don't know why, just who I am. But for that, it really benefits for my teaching. So then when I go to create a lesson plan or I think about a unit, all right, I know this student in and out. They're awesome. They're my guy, they're my gal, they're awesome, they're sweet. But how can I now make them successful? Me just getting excited for them and changing up my cake formula for this lesson definitely helps them in my classroom. Now I get to do the next thing you said, hormones and relationships. Like, I'm an elementary teacher. I'm not used to that yet. Like, I coached it a little bit, but now I get to see the day-to-day of it. So now what went back to our first conversation, now I just get to learn. I get to, constantly day, hour by hour, learning. And, as a teacher, you never stop learning. Yeah, we're teaching, but on the flip side, we're always learning too.
Man, you're right on the money with that. And you said something that's absolutely true about putting together your lesson plans. And I think that this is why my students, okay, now I'm back in the college setting where
Yeah.
my students are 22 years old and they're about to be pre-service teachers. they really struggle with lesson planning because they're so focused on like the logistics, like the management and like the physical layout and the timing, the real nuts and bolts of it, because they can't plan for the relationships that they already have with their students. And that's an element that's missing from teacher preparation. Is there's a component involved in lesson planning that's absolutely crucial, and that is knowing your students, knowing how they'll receive it, knowing how you need to teach it specific to them. Like
Yep.
you might have your own teaching style and your methods that you teach, but you change them a little bit for each class, for each student, right? And the 21 or 22-year-old pre-service teacher that's writing lesson plans for practice, for a grade in their university setting, they can't do that, and it's not their fault. It's because they can't do that. They don't have students that they know.
Yeah.
So it's almost like there's this magic ingredient that's missing from the preparation, that you don't really learn how to do it till you're in the water learning to swim. You feel me? So I don't really know how, as a teacher, as a professor who teaches future teachers, how I give them that authentic experience of how do you really prep a lesson plan for the real world setting without knowing your students. And it's actually sad. I think some practicing current teachers, some veteran teachers still prep lesson plans like students back in college because they never did what you did, which is actually get to know their students. They're still just doing lesson plans to the logistics, the management, the timing of their presentations and whatnot, without that special ingredient that makes the lesson plan really pop, which is knowing your students and how to really teach it for them specifically and their personalities. So I'm so proud of you that you understand that knowing your students goes in the recipe, goes in the cake making recipe. I'm so glad you know that, because not everyone really picks up on that. For you, I
If
think it
anything,
was
that's my first ingredient. Like if I don't
yeah,
have, I've read books and stuff when they're in my first few years and whatnot. And I mean, that's just the main focal point. I know classroom management is something that I've just tried to work on the most because that's what our school wanted to work on. I mean, that was the big thing that we harped on at every one of our meetings. And, second headline, if anything, is building those relationships. It's just like in football, for two references to what you're saying. You can do your perfect plays where you don't play against a defense, and the play is going to look amazing, right? You add in the defense, well, you can't predict that. Now, your film study is getting to know your students, right? All right, I know what they're going to do with this situation.
sure.
With my student, I know what they're going to do with this lesson. So, I mean, there's your kind of like analogy there with that whole thing. So I totally like just get it in all aspects of what I do.
Yeah, that,
But
that really flows.
yeah, so moving on with that, I mean, we've been talking so much about teaching and let's fans absolutely love it, but also, you got to come back with the part of research, and that's something that you've done a ton of. So what just drives you to do all of this awesome research, which honestly benefits so many people?
Well, the research component, well, for one, it's a career contingency. Like if you're going to be a professor that's going to go for tenure, research is part of your gig. So there's a little bit of external pressure there to produce research and get it published and whatnot. But I've really not had any trouble hitting the expectations at my institutions, Cornell, Tarleton, and I'm at York in New York. Um, I'm I guess you'd say I'm meeting all the standards and expectations for research productivity and quality. And I'm driven to do that internally because it just felt like that's what I owed it to my kids at Nichols, the school in Arlington that I left. It seemed like if I'm going to leave this setting where my feet are on the ground and I'm almost like a first responder to their childhood trauma, you know what I'm saying? Like, then I need to really make it worth society's while. I didn't want to feel like I was running from a fight. There were some days working at Nichols, man, it was a fight, man. And I don't mean with the students. I mean me versus the students. I mean, it was me with the students versus like barriers in society, like racial barriers and drug related barriers and just society and cultural barriers that made success and a healthy life very hard for them to achieve. So I didn't want to feel like I was running from the fight. And if I was going to pursue this other opportunity I had, higher education, then I need to squeeze as much juice out of that berry as possible, which is hopefully do a good job teaching my students and also communicating still to teachers out there with their boots on the ground, the K through 12 educators the coaches, maybe even the athletic trainers or personal trainers that are also working with at-risk youth, or maybe just unhealthy people in society. Like whether you're a personal trainer, a physical therapist, a chiropractor, you're a member of the health team, right? Just like a physical educator is obviously a member of the health team. So my goal through my work, whether it's teaching or writing for publication, is to help the community achieve health, because I think we all have a right to be healthy. And I think that there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. And I think that if we start with early childhood education, physical education, we can propel them towards a healthy lifetime of health. But when it doesn't work for whatever various reasons, then we as health professionals can intervene in different ways: athletic training, personal training, physical therapy, right? So the goal is health, and health is a broadly inclusive term that's obviously got physical elements woven throughout it, but also emotional, psychological, and social health as well. And I think that's where good teachers do the best job at at initiating healthy psychological and emotional practices in students. So, like I said, I feel like K through 12 physical education is like where we start, and then along the line, as individuals grow through K through 12, college years, adulthood, other health professionals take the lead. Like I said, maybe your more medical health enhancing professions like PT, occupational therapy, whatnot.
Yeah, I just love with all the research that you have done. I know I was looking back at a video where you like change your whole skin for like the young educator versus the older educator. I know you brought up me about that. I mean, way back when you were at Cornell, and just after all the research, after all this and that, you just talked about trying to almost convince these students in school to live a healthy lifestyle, to maybe, and this is a big thing I took from student teaching, was if I can get this one student who never wants to touch a ball after college or run or do any kind of sport after high school, I mean, as long as I get them to walk and they enjoy walking 25 to 30 minutes a day, just to like stress relief, good exercise. Like I did a challenge, and walking was one of the best ways for like to reach exercise goals and whatnot. So if I can tell this high school student who is not gonna do anything at all, that's a win. I'm helping them, pushing them, propelling them into that healthy lifestyle. So I mean, definitely what you just said just sparked that in my mind.
Yeah, walking for some people is a starting point to become healthy, and for some people, it's like the goal. Can I just get them? Can I get them walking? That's success. Uh, I read a quote somewhere. It said, "Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly,"
Never heard that one.
which made me think a little bit, because that's not the phrase. Anything worth doing is worth doing right? That's the phrase. Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly or worth doing bad. And I think what he meant was, if it's worth doing, even doing like the less excellent version of that task is better than doing nothing at all. Running a marathon is great. That's the goal. Well, running a 5K is still better than not running at all, right? So anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. And I think it's the same with our nutrition choices. Let's say you want to go to, well, let's say you're forced into going to McDonald's, obviously an unhealthy meal, right? Well, you could get a burger with a Coke and fries. That's the limit of unhealthiness, Now, so good. All right. Or you could do the right thing by still eating at McDonald's, but doing the less unhealthy option. So instead of the burger, a chicken sandwich. Instead of a Coke, get a sweet tea, or even better, an unsweet tea, right?
Yeah.
Instead of fries. So all right. So you've already lost because you went to McDonald's. All right.
I'm guilty. It's all good.
Yeah, dude, same. I'm calling my own failure. But you can still make the unhealthy choice as least harmful as possible. And I think that kind of works, and it dovetails with the anything worth doing is worth doing poorly mantra. Go to the gym instead of an hour, which would be great. Go for a half an hour. That ain't so bad. So I think that you're going to be working with kids in high school that don't have the internal motivation. It's a different animal, high school and elementary PE. It's a different animal completely. So I think that your expectations or your standards for success and what your students are able to achieve might just be, not choosing the most unhealthy option. You know what I'm saying? And I think that your energy will be a motivating factor for your students, and you're going to get probably better buy-in from your high school PE participants than most PE teachers are. Your youth is very helpful. Obviously, look how fit you are, bro. Did you do pull-ups before you started?
Trying to catch up to you, rocking the two
Yeah.
plates and the three plates, whatever it was. But
You got to hit 30. You hit 30 and everything changes up here, man.
gotcha. Like it took me a second too. You said that, I'm like, I know you're wrong, but why are you wrong? And that's so true. Like for me, obviously, like when I don't get a workout in, I'm just happy I've been blessed with that kind of mentality. I get rough. You can even ask my fiance. She's like, you didn't work out today. I know you're going to be a little cranky. Like I totally get it. Right. But like for the poorly, if something that's worth doing it poorly is so true. Because like you said, go out, do that 5K. That's better than doing nothing. If you go out and walk, that's better than watching that extra episode of Netflix. And if for those people who are starting out, who I've tried to help out some friends with making not lesson plans, but workout plans and whatnot, doing the bare minimum. If you're supersetting push-ups from your knees, you betcha. Let's keep on rocking with that, right? You do, on the bike. Oh, it was literally tough today. I only did 20. You didn't only do 20. You did 20 minutes.
You did 20. You did 20 more than zero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that just hits home. There's also another teacher who said, like, you don't just do anything. You're doing it. You're not just going to this one school. You're not just playing soccer, football at this one school. Like, you're doing it. That's awesome. That's way better than sitting at home. You got off from your office job or you didn't stand up all day and you sat back on the couch and ate all this. I'm the same way. Now you reference it to food as well. A lot of people said, oh, I can't control what I'm eating, this and that. There are so many ways. I find all the little ways of how to eat healthy when I go out. Like, ooh, I can maybe not have this and have, the chicken sandwich, like you were saying. And then also with that, before our time runs out, by the way, and then I'll re-invite you. But I did the 75 hard, which I did a caloric deficit. And just going out, like I can eat a lot. Like a lot.
I believe it.
But during this, I had to make that healthy decision. Like, okay, I'm already making that poor decision, like you said, but I cannot eat the entire sandwich. That's like a big old tenderloin, right? I can eat half. So I totally agree with that quote. I'm so happy that you told me. And that whole quote is personally like something I've never heard, like I told you, and I think it's so cool with all of that. I mean, as we're going on, it's been awesome talking about everything with you, but like what's some of the things that you have personally learned, not maybe from your research, like down to the nitty-gritty, but what's something that's definitely benefited you almost maybe day to day or educationally, teaching wise?
Teaching wise. And you want me to focus on like teaching college students or teaching in physical education?
Either or, just kind of first thing that comes to mind.
I think I learn more. I think I learned more about teaching college students by watching them teach out in the K through 12 settings when they're doing their student teaching. I think just like if you're a coach, how are you going to analyze your athletes without really watching them in practice? And then stopping practice and doing something we call stimulated recall. What was going through your head there? Why did you go through that gap when the play's supposed to go through this gap?
I've been there.
And literally asking the questions, not in an accusatory way, but asking them legitimately and seriously, why did you decide to do that? Because they might have seen something different. They might have seen that guard was losing his footing and knowing that gap wasn't going to exist. They might have seen that linebacker over-scraped. And so I went through this gap instead of the C gap. Right. So they might have actually seen something that I didn't. And having confidence in my students to see things that I don't enables me to teach them in a much freer way, where we talk about maybe not just the nuts and bolts of teaching, but we get to the deeper, like the heart of the matter, like why are you teaching? Why are you teaching this way? And try to find something that I can connect with them on a deeper level. Because as a teacher who's going to teach future teachers, the first thing they're interested in is like, okay, how do I just do this job right? Survival. I need to do this job right and not be in over my head. And I don't want the students to laugh at me. I want them to think that I'm an expert. I want to have control of the classroom and the setting. So that nuts and bolts, how to do the job right, survival mode, is a dangerous mode to stay in for your entire college experience. I need you to get out of that mode and get to the heart of the matter before you graduate, to know why you're a teacher to begin with. I need to know why you care about teaching the subject matter. Because let's face it, teaching someone pickleball might not seem like the way that we change the world, right? But can we find in the pickleball activity some type of heart of the matter, something that we can connect on a deeper level that makes it meaningful, makes it health enhancing, and makes it a positive experience for the student, so that it can lead to something that's going to be health enhancing, maybe something that does change their world, right? So if we can get out of the nuts and bolts, how do I be a teacher, how to survive, into the next phase of really getting to the heart of the matter. And frankly, maybe the heart of the matter should come first anyways. But I find that when students come to me their sophomore or junior years of college, they're about to start their teacher education programming, and the first thing that they want to be able to do is survive. I really think we need to flip that and begin the teacher education journey with a very introspective, intrinsic, reflective exercise of exploring myself, exploring my personality, exploring my philosophies, and getting to the heart of the matter of why I want to be a teacher in the first place. And whatever that reason is, I'm sure it's a good, noble reason. Let that be the fuel that fires your teaching behaviors. Putting the heart first, so to speak. And I found that when I watch my students go teach, I've got a class of pre-service teachers that go out to, Jackson Middle School to teach a bunch of. I see their heart when they teach. When we're in the classroom, we're talking about lesson planning, we're talking about how you be a good teacher. It's hard to see that heart until they're actually in it. And so I just think as many hands-on experiences as possible, as many field experiences as possible, and letting them actually demonstrate the teaching act rather than talk about the teaching act in some sort of nebulous philosophical terminology in like lecture format. That's informed me. I've become a better teacher by watching my students go out and practice teaching, because then I can I don't know if this sounds right, but then I can correct them, right? When they do it.
Yeah.
With anything, your first attempt, you don't do it perfectly. So I can guide them, correct them, and then hopefully improve their teaching mechanics when I'm watching them out in the field and we meet and we debrief. But more than that, I get data from the experience, and that I'm seeing what it is that they care about as they teach. And then I can, almost like a counselor would talk to a patient, tell them like, hey, by the way, the root of your teaching mechanics could be this emotional or meaningful thing that you find in education, health education, or PE. And then that's what they can focus on the rest of their experience in that class, or as they get into student teaching, internship, and beyond. So I think your question was, what's something that I've learned?
Yeah.
I've learned I need to watch my teachers in action to know what type of skills that they have, to enhance those skills or whatnot.
Yeah. And I mean, you just took that and like opened up a whole nother thing that really hit home with me is I'm a person who I learned by doing. I can't sit there and lecture and just listen. It's not who I am. I can't sit down for more than like 10 minutes. Sitting right here, it's like I got to move around a lot, right? Yeah. And by doing it, I got that confidence from my professors, from you, from the other education professors at Cornell. They're like, wow, you're really good. Hence, my heart was in it, right? I really enjoy this. I'm good at it. I'm making a difference in my eyes and into professionals' eyes, right? So then when you get to the survival point, right, you talk about teachers that just want to survive. And those are the teachers that are like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to work today. But for me, I enjoy work. I love going. Like, I hate sitting at home. I'd rather be there doing X, Y, Z, teaching this game, teaching kids how to jump rope. It's just my jam, right? So like, for me, obviously, it's super hard sometimes to say, oh, it was easy for me. That's why some professional athletes are terrible coaches. Oh, that was super easy for me. Why can't you do that? It's like, well, question.
They
They're
work through the mechanical problems, or even the emotional problems, or even the motivational problems that arise with a tough job. They never had to work through those motivational problems.
Yeah. And then, we go back to when I saw other people becoming teachers, like we all took the classes together. We teach in front of each other. Like, I remember all those days we teach like in front of 4 other people and like, oh, what worked, what went well. And like, that was obviously really good. And getting that feedback is, I think, crucial for any student. But then you also have the flip side, those students who are really good at writing papers. Personally, I was not. This teacher might seem like a way better teacher than I am because they can write it out. But just like you were saying, learning and seeing what they do wrong when the students enter the room, it's a completely different ball game. And that's where some teachers leave after a few years. Wow, it sounded like so much fun when my lesson plan, my day was perfect on paper. When I got there, and then you get into that survival mode, and then you have to do survival mode day by day. So
Yeah,
then, like,
survival mode. Oh, sorry, Mickey, I didn't mean to
well,
cut you off.
and that's just where, as a teacher, you gotta learn to love it or learn to, like, I had a really bad day. Remember that one class where I got that kid to finally catch a ball and their smile was on top? I mean, that tops any of the bad things that happen. And I think that's also another thing teachers miss out on. Like, they do the pros and cons list. Wow, all this happened today. Really stunk. Where from you, like, you could also be teaching these teachers, like, that little that win you had, that student that did well in your class when I saw you and you acknowledged it, use that as the fuel, and like you wouldn't have known that by going and teaching them, like
Yeah,
seeing that little spark as a teacher.
and you'll mess with your head when you start keeping count of good
Yeah.
versus bad. Like these were the 500 bad things that happened during the school day, and only these 2 good things happened. All right. Well, first of all, don't keep count. But
Yep.
second of all, I'll bet those 2 good things are worth 500 bad things because those 2 good things could have been like really good. And you also can't see the good things. Like you asked a kid how their weekend was on a Monday morning, and you engaged in a 20-second conversation that was like you were hardly even present for, but that might have been significant to the child, right? You have no idea what little positive interaction you have could be a very profound positive interaction on the receiving end, the child that's receiving it. You know what I'm saying? So you're keeping count, but you're keeping count based on your perspective, not on your student's perspective. Because guess what? Over the course of the day, you taught 65 kids. Now let's do an inventory on their good things and bad things. Because I bet there was more than a few things that you did that were good in the eyes of those 65 things. So it's not 500 to 2, it's 500 to all the good things from all 6 of your kids as well. So don't keep count. You'll drive yourself crazy and survival mode has come up, that term survival mode. This is a really weird tangent, but I'm making a point with it.
No, you're great. I'm
Okay.
following along.
I've been watching this show on the History Channel, Mountain Men. And it's
Okay.
about these guys who are rugged and they live out in really remote parts of the world, and they're they're practically survivalists. Like that's just the lifestyle that they want. They want to hunt and earn their food. They want to earn their survival. It's what moves them. It's just the way they roll. And it follows like, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6 of them and kind of tracks them throughout the seasons. And you just kind of watch them survive and live their life. I know it sounds boring, but each one of these men that they feature, they all have this personality where they're, to a man, just way more positive mindset than the average person that you might deal with at your job or at work or at school or whatever. They're just really positive people. And I think that there's a lesson in that. I think that having a positive mindset is a survival tool. And when you work in coaching and teaching and education, there are so many negative things that could happen and failures along the way that if you start keeping count of all the bad, it can recalibrate your brain to be a negative or pessimistic person and not see these challenges as opportunities, not see these failures as data, and not see all the good things that are happening from the eyes of your students that you can't see because you're not trying to look at the day's events through their eyes, but you're looking through your own eyes. And that's problematic, and that can turn into a very negative mindset. So I just think survival, literally, survival requires a positive mindset. And I would say that to anyone that's going to be, a new or younger emerging coach or teacher in the next few years that, hey, it's tough and there will be failures and there will be embarrassments and you will prove time and time again that, I didn't learn this material in college because now I'm supposed to do something that I don't have the content knowledge. All of that, you can survive it if you've got the positive mindset for it and you're willing to look at it as an opportunity to grow and count the victories more than count the deficits.
Yeah, and I know what you started with was the 20-second conversation that could benefit a student's day. And I read in it and we watched it in some professional development. I'm like, oh, like personally, I was gonna try it. Like, of course, I'll sit outside. So what I did every day when the bell rang, I'd go to the stairs as all the kids down. I'd say every kid's name. Morning, Colin, morning, Haley, morning, Nala, morning, and just wrap them off.
Would
They're
you go
always
that
like,
fast?
it's weird. Oh yeah. By the end of the year,
Yeah.
I knew every single kid. Oh yeah, all 250 we had in the school, right? Where I was just ripping the names. And then, the days I was gone, they're like, Mr. Hines, where were you yesterday? Like, are you okay? I'm like, oh yeah, I had some stuff to do like this morning, so I couldn't be out there. Like, okay, I just wanted to make sure like they were actually concerned for me because it wasn't part of their day. It was their daily routine. They know when they come downstairs, they're gonna see Mr. Hines there standing with his coffee. Hey, 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 and all that. And like you said, for some people, that hello might go a long way. Like, man, Mr. Hines actually cared for me. And like this person might not like PE at all. Like they do.
Mhm.
They hate coming into the gym. But for me to go out and do that and possibly make their day. And those little things, you talked about it. I talked about how I saw it in a video and read about it. Like just goes such a long way. It's those little things that you can do as a teacher that just benefit. I mean, all the things we've already talked about with classroom management and
Yeah.
relationships.
And if nothing else, it's just even on its smallest scale, it's a tiny, minuscule, nice little thing to do. And how much energy and currency and emotional capital did it require from you? Very little, right?
Yeah,
So
no.
it's not a huge investment you have to make, but if nothing else, it's just a nice little thing. And it makes the workplace and their school place, which can feel like a prison when you're in high school to go to school, right? It makes the experience a little less crappy. So I've always looked at compassion and kindness as being a very logical practice. Like it takes so little for me to be a nice person. So why wouldn't I? It's such a small investment for me to be nice or compassionate or extend myself with such great potential on the receiving end. It's just a logical, it's like investing. Like, why wouldn't you buy stock that you know has potential to be very good and I only had to pay a penny for it? It's just a good investment to be a good person. And I think that teachers, burnout's real, y'all. Teaching is hard. Administrative uh, administrative challenges and political and legislative policy related challenges related to like people telling you how to. It's hard, and there's so many things that beat down on teachers. It's 10 times the responsibility and there's only a 24-hour day, but they give you 30 hours worth of work. It's tough. So I don't blame or fault teachers for not like being able to fake it all day long because hey, they're humans
Yeah.
too. But I think that that's where being a compassionate or a kind person, or even being a positive person in general, just requires effort. Like it takes effort to get off the couch and go to the gym. No, it's not easy. It's more comfortable not to do that.
Hardest
It's
part is
more
showing up.
totally, dude. It can be more comfortable to be a grumpy person. You know what I'm saying? Like it's real. Like it's easier and more comfortable to just be neutral or negative. It takes a little work to be positive. I don't give this advice to be a positive person without recognizing that it does take effort, but you can recalibrate yourself. And just like you're the guy that used to be couch and Cheetos and watching reruns of The Simpsons your whole life, right? It's cool. You can reverse that. You can be the guy that goes for walks after dinner and the guy that you and your wife walk the dog and lift weights. You can change your lifestyle. You can also change your personality to be a more positive person, but it does take friction. It takes deliberate action. It can be an exercise to be a good dude. And I don't have any magic formula on how you do that, except for it does take sweat and tears. It takes effort. Um, you could very easily just sit there and monitor, the students as they come in to make sure that everyone's following the rules. It takes a little extra work to do what you do, and I do think that that work is an investment, though, and it pays off. And maybe it doesn't pay off for Mr. Mickey Hines, because what are those kids are going to, those kids aren't going to give you anything back, in terms of a salary increase or anything like that. Or
Right. Give
hours
me that
off.
boost, that bonus.
You have to be confident and you have to be proud and you have to be appreciative that your investment in being a good guy pays off for them, that they feel like they can win when they get to school. And ultimately that turns them into a healthier person. Like obviously school is important, being healthy is important. And if, attitude matters and motivation matters. So as they enter the school with a better attitude and more motivated, well, that makes whatever is going to happen in school happen from that lens and be a better, a better, more positive experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a perfect segment into like our, last year questions, but you're totally right. It takes a lot to be a good person, a happy person. Sometimes it comes easier for myself, but also sometimes I need that boost. Some days, like there's been some days where I just sat down next to a student because they, had a hurt foot, whatever. I'm like, I need a break too. I'm gonna scan in for a quick 5 minutes, checking in on the student. And then also on the flip side, you're so right. It's easier to be grumpy and it's harder to be a more positive person. But I also think that it's contagious. Whether that be our principal would sometimes bring us Chick-fil-A cookies, and you betcha at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm eating that cookie. Did it give me the boost? You bet it did. Those first two classes, I was a little bit kind of excited. I'm like, all right, like the principal went, got me a cookie. I'm feeling good. Like turned my
Yeah.
day around.
And you're feeling good. The sugar highs helps, but it's also like your boss cares
Yeah,
about you.
that's what
Like
I'm
that
talking about.
matters. Like when you're a teacher and your kids know that the teacher cares about me, that makes you feel good. That matters.
You want to try harder. I mean, that's with all the coach classes. Oh, my coach actually cares for me. And, whether I go up to a student, I'll go like say hi to a teacher for a day or like talk to them, talk about how their weekend was. Like even the teachers, even the para educators, they're like, wow, thank you for asking. We actually had a fun day at the zoo, like me and my family. I'm like, sweet. Now I might have just made them be a little bit more positive with their interaction with students, just bringing my positive, radiant vibe to all these people. And now,
Yeah.
as we,
I think a
yeah,
teacher's work ethic and a teacher's commitment to good planning and a teacher's commitment to relationship building and a teacher's commitment to putting out positive vibes. This is why teachers are the bomb because it's an investment that rarely they see it pay off. It pays off in the recipient of the good deed, if you will. You're planting a seed and you're watering it and you're giving it sunshine, and then the seed gets to grow. And as a teacher, if it makes you more proud that your student achieved something than it would if you achieved something, well, then you've got the heart for a teacher to be a teacher. And I obviously that's present in you. What I would tell my students that they come to me that they're going to be sophomores or juniors and they're about to start on their teacher education journey, I tell them that you're about to enter a world now where your successes are other people's successes. And I think it's the same with coaching as well. You're in the coaching world. Obviously, you're an athlete. Dude, you were a great athlete.
oh, thank you.
Mount Vernon and a great athlete at Cornell, and you've got records and won races, and you've got all the yards you accumulated as a running back and all that. It's all done, bro. Sorry to break it to you.
Oh yeah.
Mickey Hines will never appear on a plaque again unless it's for being a great teacher or coach because you created another great student or great athlete. And that's pretty special when you enter a phase in life and you transition from being the student to the teacher, from the athlete to the coach. And now you get to just let all of their awards rain down on you. They're yours as much as they are theirs.
Yeah, you're totally right. All that is, definitely done and over, but now I get to see those students go and do that. Like, wow, you remind me of myself. You're so, you did this right. Now your name's on a plaque. But you already hinted at it. Just talking about workouts. And I mean, personally, what do you do? I know you were repping up the weight when you're at Cornell nowadays. What's the new workout routine for you? Just something else to while they're listening. I mean, we're going to transition from teaching now just to workouts and kind of how you go.
I'm into lifting weights. When I was in high school, I was a power lifter. I mean, I played a lot of sports, football. I threw discus, ran a little bit in track, soccer. So like the weight room is part of your training. So
Yeah.
I was in the weight room for all those sports, and I don't know, I was kind of just like stronger than some of my peers. So when we got a powerlifting team, my sophomore, maybe junior year of high school, I did powerlifting. So I changed the way I lifted a little bit, but it was really a similar programmatic structure to like your offensive defensive lineman lifting protocol
Yeah.
that we followed. So it was natural for me, and I got into it, and I did some powerlifting. Not I competed in high school. I didn't compete in college, but I kept that lifting kind of foundation. And then I added some hypertrophy type exercises. So instead of doing sets of 4 reps, do sets of 8 to 10 or 12. I like to keep it kind of low. By low, I mean 8 to 10 because with a set of 8, you can still go pretty heavy and move some heavy weight
Yep.
because it's fun. Like I like lifting a lot, as much weight as I can because it's fun. But I do know that in terms of getting hypertrophic results, growing the volume of muscle, the bodybuilding style is really the ideal style, which is increasing time under tension. So instead of just trying to curl as much weight as you can for 8 reps, slow it down, really increase that time under tension. Instead of 8, do 16. That's, I know, better for hypertrophy, but I can't help it. I like going heavy. It's fun. So I still have that powerlifting mindset where I like to go heavy and I like to do rapid weights, um, at least rapid eccentric phase of the lift, and try, obviously control during the concentric phase of the lift. But I stick with the powerlifting lifts, squat, bench, deadlift, and then I fill in around that. So I break, maybe this is old man of me because I'm now in my 30s. But instead of doing
pretty young.
I like to lift every day if I can. I don't go heavy and hard every day because you really just can't. And also, you'll find this out like whenever the older you get and the more responsibilities you get at work and all that, you just have less time, right? So I'd love to pound out weights for 60 minutes a day, but you just don't have that time. Time's a luxury. So if I can get 30 or 40 minutes in, I call it a pretty good day. But I break things up into muscle groups. So a chest day, a shoulder day, an arms day, a legs day, and a back day. So I think that's 5.
Yeah.
And maybe I take an off day because I just assume that built into my week, I'm going to get too busy to work out. So whatever day I'm too busy with work to lift, that's my off day. So I lift like 5 days a week, I guess. And with those core lifts, those powerlifting lifts, bench, squat, and deadlift, those are the ones I go heavy on. I go free weight on that, free weight bench, squat, and deadlift. Sometimes I'll supplement, or not supplement, but I'll swap out barbell for dumbbells just for
mix up the body.
And then I just fill in around that. It's funny when you think about lifting weights, almost any exercise you could do in the weight room, whether it's cable attachments or free weights, any movement you can do is basically a variation of a really rudimentary, primitive movement. Like the bench and really any chest press exercise is a variation of a push-up.
Yep.
Like you're just reorienting your body. Instead of moving your body, you're moving a stack of weights or, the chin up is the rudimentary and primitive version of like 90% of back exercises, the squat, body weight. So when you think about the way the body moves, even if there was no weight moving whatsoever, moving your body in its full range of motion is the objective for the average Jane or Joe in the weight room or getting exercise. So the idea is first move your body in its full range of motion and then simply add resistance to it, whether it's dumbbell in each hand or a band connected to some sort of stationary apparatus. Just be able to move your body in its full range of motion with resistance is the start of putting together your workout program. And I never really made that association when I was a personal trainer. I made it a little bit later when I was teaching strength and conditioning at the college level, because I had a lot of students that were in that class for the wrong. I don't know how they wound up in that class, but they themselves had never lifted weights. Well, here you are taking a class to prepare you to be a strength and conditioning coordinator. You don't lift weights? What? And so it's like, okay, how do I break this down? How do I dumb this down to a young adult who doesn't lift weights? And so we started with square one, which is, okay, without resistance, let's move our bodies. And the more I know, and honestly, the research that's come out has discussed the importance of resistance training for healthy aging. And obviously the benefits of healthy cardiovascular and respiratory systems is such a good predictor for other types of health conditions and diseases that are associated. More and more research is coming out that says, hey, the ability to move your body against resistance is just as good of a predictor for your late in life health as your cardiopulmonary health is. So we need to be telling people, young people your age now that are still in their 20s, start lifting, or it doesn't have to be lifting free weights, but just moving against resistance. People think resistance training and they instantly think the squat and the bench press, right? No, resistance training could be hoisting your backpack up on top of the
Yeah.
bunk bed in the dorm, right? It's moving your body against resistance. So it doesn't matter what the resistance is. Being able to move your body against resistance is a major predictor for pretty serious health conditions later in life. So I'll always lift weights because I like weights. But one
Yeah.
day when my joints start to give because I pounded it out too much
Another
in the
10,
garage
20
weight
years.
room, I'll make the transition from free weights to cables and machines and even resistance bands. When I vacation, when I travel, I grab a couple resistance bands and throw them in my duffel bag. And you can do anything like stick, loop your foot around one band, curl the
Yep.
band for curls, shoulder presses, tricep kickbacks. If you can attach it, loop it around something stationary, you can even do isolated one arm chest
Yeah.
presses over it. I mean, the resistance band is a miracle, and I'm getting a little bit into that. I'm 33 now. My joints are still in pretty good shape uh, because I never really had a bad injury. But I know people my age that played football and lifted weights heavy and they were powerlifters that have the joints of 50-year-old men.
Yeah.
Um,
My knee soon, but yeah.
yeah, so at a certain point, I know that I'm going to have to start scaling the weight down. But as for now, I still like pounding it out heavy. It's still fun. So going for it.
No, at least, I mean, coming from you, a professional, and like with all the weight training and whatnot, I do the similar thing. I focus on 3 lifts, bench, squat, and I actually love hang cleans just because I was really good at
Oh,
hang cleans. And for the smaller person, like I loved it and it was awesome. So like that's me. I tried to, I set up a program where I do, 10 to 12 reps, for 2 weeks. Then the next 2 weeks I do 8 to 6, 6 to 4, 2, and then try to go really heavy on a rep or so. And then I take, another 3 months, 4 months just to kind of go back up high, work down. And I've honestly loved it too. I'm totally with you. Like lifting weights is the move. Like I just
yeah.
like it. I don't feel so dead. I did CrossFit for about 2 years, and that's great too. But there's only so many wall balls you can do before I go insane. Like it just crushes you. But it's just really cool that you have a similar lifting strategy, weightlifting strategy as what I have.
Yeah, and for me, it's because that's fun for me. Like I look forward, I'll be in bed at night. I'll be planning in my head what I'm gonna do the next morning in the gym, or back in Fort Worth, I had a garage weight room. I pieced it together.
Oh, awesome.
I was really, really proud of it. I had to sell it because we moved from Fort Worth
Yeah.
because we're moving to New York, and you can't take stuff like that when you're living in an apartment in New York.
Can't put it in
So
the guest bedroom of the apartment.
yeah, but I had a really good time putting it together. But you said something that stuck in my head, which is you like to do it. And that's what I like to do as well. I think for any person, find, even if it's the specific lifts that you like to do, like the hang cleans, the one that you like, well, then build that, make that the centerpiece
Yep.
of what you lift around, I work with a colleague who is herself a doctor of kinesiology, like me, like she's an expert. She doesn't like to work out, like she teaches physical educators and health educators, but like working out's not part of her jam, which is, it seems like an oxymoron, honestly. But that's just her deal. Until recently, she found uh, martial arts. She likes it.
Wait.
Who knew? I know she's really into it, and so now she does martial arts training multiple times a week, and she's built her exercise and her fitness and her physical health program around it. And sometimes it takes a while. She's about my age. She's a little bit younger, but she's about my age, and that just goes to show you it can take a while until you find the thing that makes you sweat that you like to do. And you and I were competitive, we're athletes. You and I could go play pickup basketball, racquetball,
Definitely.
or horseshoes and really get into it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I
If
play horseshoes. Oh yeah.
to any of your listeners who don't have that spirit in them, just go out and find something, try something, find the thing that elevates your heart rate, find the thing that makes you sweat a little bit that you like doing, and boom, just do that. Like we said, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. Okay, sure, I'd love it if everyone did CrossFit and yoga and Tai Chi and lifted weights, but that's never going to happen. So find the one thing you want to do that.
I mean, you're totally right. It's just find that niche. A lot of people just like biking. I mean, you can put a lot of hard biking workouts. You can do the fartlek style where you go really hard for a minute and then easy for the next 5. You can say, you know what, I'm going to bike 15 miles today. Well, that's pretty good exercise last time I checked. And just finding anything. I mean, I still play flag football. It's something I enjoy doing. And I check my calories on my watch. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was awesome. I wouldn't have known that. And it's something that's healthy. It gets your heart rate up. Now, we're getting here towards the end of, the interview. It's been awesome, so educational. I mean, any other teacher that needs like a pump me up, like, listen to this, we got you. So I like to end these interviews with a more kind of fun, like mind twisting questions. So I'm gonna rattle off 3 questions for you, and you got to go first thing that comes to mind. All right.
Myself. All right, let's do it.
First up, Texas Longhorns. You still a Texas fan?
Oh, man, okay.
Oh,
My allegiance, I was born a Tennessee Volunteer fan.
that's
Okay,
what
my
it
dad
was.
played
That's what it
football
was.
there.
Yeah.
All right. I'm a huge Tennessee fan, and I grew up born and raised in Texas. So I kind of adopted the Longhorns as like,
Yeah.
hey, that's my state's flagship. So I don't root against them, but like my heart is with Tennessee.
Gotcha. So Tennessee. Boom.
Yeah,
Now,
big time.
next thing is you got to create a workout and I got to do it. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Boom. You're going to create me a workout. I'll do it and whatnot. Now, the final question, which is more of the mind twisting one, is hot dog, a sandwich?
All right. Are you ready for this?
I don't know because I'm very passionate about it.
It's a taco.
Okay.
Have you seen that before? No one's brought that up. I feel
No,
like
they
that's
have. It's definitely came up at the lunch table.
because everyone, sandwich or sandwich. What is it? Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yeah.
Or I don't know. Anyway, okay. I can't claim that I came up with that independently. I saw that somewhere, and then someone took it further. This must have been on Twitter or something like that. Someone took it further. They took all sorts of crazy foods and actually categorized everything into either being a taco or a salad. And he found a way to like really academically make his point come across. And when you start to look at everything through that lens, everything is funny. So I think I side with that guy because he had an eloquent way of expressing his opinion. So I'm going to go taco.
No, and we had that at the lunch table too. I totally get it because it's in the taco form, and I am a firm believer because when the hot dog like breaks and it's 2 pieces of bread inside of meat, well, there's your sandwich. I'm a strong believer that hot dog is a sandwich, but for those who are taco people who thinks hot dog's a taco, I respect it. I respect it. As long as it's not just a hot dog. Really interesting answer. I love it that it came up on your Twitter and you're like, yeah.
It's so funny that I just happened to see that not long ago.
Oh yeah. So I'm definitely on the hot dog is a sandwich. I think a lot of people know. I mean, we'll get in like brutal battles at lunch tables back in college of like, dude, yes, it is a sandwich. No, it's not. And we'll go through like peanut butter jelly. Is that a sandwich or is, the Subway a sandwich? Because typically the bun isn't broken.
It's connected. Yeah.
Yeah, still connected. So is that a hot dog? And then the taco.
It's funny that that's been like a cultural talking point for years. Like when I was in school too. Like that's funny that it's silly, which just goes to show you that it's all about perspective and point of view. Like over, I don't know, 20, 30 years, however long that, that lunchroom conversation has been going on, there's no solution, right? There's no resolution. It's still opinion.
No, it's been absolutely amazing to talk to you. Definitely gave me a boost of excitement for teaching this year. Always still continue to learn from you. I love hearing from you and whatnot. It's been awesome having you on. Now, is there any last things before we peace out of here of this awesome interview?
Man, the fact that you're doing this, the fact that you're taking time, your personal time, to still live in the health education, coaching education, sporting, physical education space, like with this podcast, I'm so impressed by it. You don't just live it during the hours of the school day. Great coaches, great teachers, they live it 24/7. And you're demonstrating that by the mere presence of this podcast that you want to have conversations about it. Good on you. That's evidence that you're really in the right field. And I'll be honest, I'm proud. Like we said earlier, when you're a teacher or coach, your accomplishments are shared with others. And I feel like you're succeeding so much. And I'm going to take a little bit of that and claim it for my own as well.
Good. You definitely
you're a student of mine. And I'm just so proud of my experience at Cornell and that it yielded a relationship with you and that we got to have this conversation.
Yeah, 100%. That's what we do here on the Mickey's podcast, just promoting people's healthy lifestyles, whether that be coaching, teaching, athletics. I know we're definitely around the sports era here where we talk about our sports weekly, but bringing on guests and just celebrating them. I talked to you earlier. It's just been, for a lot of people, it's just tough. And sometimes life sucks. And it's just really cool to highlight these people and highlight good things, and maybe you learn something here or there. But I truly appreciate you coming on and joining me for an awesome conversation on the podcast.
You got it, man. I'm glad to be a participant. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, that is all from here. Don't forget to check out any other things. This will be on the YouTube. You can go check out any of his research articles. I mean, you can find anything. You search up his name, you'll find something for Colin Pennington. But once again, thank you so much. And for everyone listening, peace. See ya.